Captain Minjun Park stood at the observation deck of the Earth diplomatic vessel Times Soul's Pride **. Outside the thick windows, Nexus Prime Station stretched in all directions. The massive structure was home to the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species in the galaxy made decisions that affected billions of lives. Minjun had been to many council sessions over the past 5 years. Today felt different. Something was wrong, but he could not put his finger on what it was. "Captain, we're receiving the docking clearance now," said Lieutenant Jinsu Lee from the bridge. The young communications officer had been nervous all morning. Min Jun did not blame him. This was only Jinsu's second time at a full council gathering. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Take us in slowly," Min Jun replied. He watched as alien ships from dozens of worlds moved around the station like insects around a bright light. Most of these vessels belonged to the 3 most powerful species in the galaxy. The crystalline hegemony ships looked like giant jewels floating in space. Their surfaces caught and bent light in beautiful ways. The gas cloud collective traveled in strange containers that held their flowing, smoke-like bodies. The insectoid, Swarm, arrived in ships that looked like giant metal beetles with too many legs. And then there were the others. The smaller species, the big 3, called junior members of the Council. Earth was one of these junior members, even though humans had been part of the galactic community for 50 years. "Captain Park," came a gentle voice behind him. Minjun turned to see Elder Kisara approaching. The Valoran moved with the quiet grace that all her people shared. She was tall and thin, with 4 arms and silver skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Her large purple eyes held wisdom that came from centuries of life. "Elder Kisara," Minjun said, bowing slightly. "It is good to see you again." The Valorans were Earth's closest friends among the stars. When humans first joined the galactic community, most species had ignored them or treated them like children. Not the Valorans. They had welcomed humanity with open arms and open hearts. "I must speak with you before the session begins," Kisara said. Her voice carried worry. "Something bad is coming. I can feel it in the currents of thought that flow through this station." Minjun nodded. The Valorans were known for their ability to sense emotions and thoughts. If Kisara was worried, there was good reason to be worried too. "What do you think will happen?" Minjun asked. "The 3 great powers have been meeting in secret," Kisara said. "They talk about purity and natural order more and more. Yesterday, Chancellor Zephon of the Hegemony called our healing practices contamination of galactic standards." Minjun felt anger rise in his chest. The Valorans were healers and teachers. Their homeworld of Valora was covered in hospitals and schools that served beings from across the galaxy. They asked for nothing in return, except friendship and peace. "They cannot seriously object to healing the sick," Minjun said. "They object to us sharing our knowledge with species they consider inferior," Kisara replied. "Including your people, Captain. They believe we make humans too strong by teaching them our ways." The 2 walked toward the main assembly hall. Other delegations were gathering for the session. Minjun noticed how the representatives of smaller species stayed close together, while the big 3 kept to themselves. The assembly hall was enormous. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds filled the seats that rose in circles around a central speaking area. At the highest level sat the 3 council chancellors who really ran everything. Chancellor Zephon, of the Hegemony, was a towering crystal being, whose body reflected light in sharp, cold patterns. Chancellor Vex of the Collective appeared as a shifting cloud of blue and green gases contained within a force field. Chancellor Hive Queen Zara of the Swarm clicked her mandibles as her compound eyes watched everything at once. "The session will come to order," Zephon announced. His voice rang like breaking glass. "Today we address a matter of grave concern to galactic stability." Minjun felt his stomach tighten. Beside him, Elder Kisara's silver skin had gone pale. "The Valoran species has overstepped its bounds," Zephon continued. "For too long, they have spread their influence to species that are not ready for their Gifts. This disrupts the natural hierarchy that has kept peace in our galaxy for millennia. Elder Kisara rose from her seat. Chancellor, with respect, we have only shared knowledge of healing and peace. You make the weak believe they can be strong, Chancellor Vex replied. The gas cloud being's voice sounded like wind through leaves. You give hope to those who should accept their place in the natural order. Oh. Inferior species learn too much from you, added Hive Queen Zara. Her clicking voice made Minjun's skin crawl. This creates problems. Minus. Though. All longer. Minjun stood up. The Valorans have done nothing but help others. They ask for nothing in return. All three chancellors turned their attention to him. The weight of their stare felt like standing under a falling mountain. The human representative will remain silent, Zephon said. This matter does not concern junior species. It concerns us if you plan to punish our friends for the crime of kindness, Minjun shot back. The hall fell completely silent. Minjun realized he had just spoken words that no junior species representative had ever dared say to the council leadership. Remove the human delegation, Zephon ordered. Security beings moved toward Minjun and his small team. They had no choice but to leave the hall. As they walked out, Elder Kisara caught Minjun's eye. Your species has honor, Captain Park, she said quietly. The galaxy will learn this truth someday. Outside the assembly hall, Minjun immediately contacted Earth Command. Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on his secure communicator within minutes. Admiral, something terrible is about to happen to the Valorans, Minjun reported. The Council is moving against them, and I think it's going to be more than just political pressure. Admiral Chen's face was grim. We've been expecting this day for years, Captain. Return to Earth immediately. You're about to learn some things about our real capabilities that might surprise you. As the Times Soul's Pride Times left Nexus Prime, Minjun looked back at the massive station. Somewhere inside, the fate of humanity's best friends in the galaxy was being decided by beings who valued power over compassion. He did not know it yet, but the next few days would change everything forever. 3 days after leaving Nexus Prime, Captain Minjun Park was still traveling back to Earth when the emergency alert came through. Lieutenant Jinsu Lee's face went white as he read the message from long-range sensors. Captain, we're getting massive energy readings from the Valora system, Jinsu said. His voice shook. The signatures match military-grade plasma weapons. Lots of them. Minjun felt ice form in his stomach. Change course. Maximum speed to Valora. Now. The Times Soul's Pride Times was not a warship. It was a diplomatic vessel with basic shields and no weapons. But Minjun could not ignore what was happening to their friends. The ship's engines screamed as they pushed beyond normal limits. Dr. Sung Mi Cho, the ship's science officer, worked at her station with desperate energy. Captain, I'm reading at least 3 separate fleet signatures in Valoran space. Hegemony, Collective, and Swarm forces. They're surrounding the planet. How many ships? Minjun asked. Over 200, sir. This isn't a police action. This is an invasion force. The journey to Valora took 18 hours at maximum speed. 18 hours of growing dread as the energy readings got stronger and more violent. When they finally arrived at the edge of the Valoran system, what Minjun saw made him sick to his soul. Valora was burning. The beautiful garden world that had welcomed visitors from across the galaxy was now covered in smoke and fire. Where the great healing centers had stood, there were only craters. The crystal spires that had housed the universities were melted ruins. The peaceful cities where millions of Valorans had lived and worked were gone. Dear God, whispered Jinsu. Dr. Cho was scanning the planet with shaking hands. Captain, I'm reading almost no life signs down there. The population was over 400 million. Now I count less than 1,000 scattered survivors. The council fleets hung in orbit like vultures over a corpse. Their ships showed no damage. This had not been a battle. This had been murder. Incoming transmission, Jinsu reported. The face that appeared on the main screen belonged to Admiral Yonseo Chang of the Hegemony Forces. Her crystal features were cold and sharp. Min Jun had met her once before at a diplomatic function. She had seemed civilized then. "Human vessel, you are ordered to leave this system immediately," Admiral Chang said. "The Valoran contamination has been cleansed. Earth would be wise to remember its place in the natural order." "Contamination?" Min Jun could barely control his anger. "You murdered an entire peaceful species. We removed a threat to galactic stability," Chang replied without emotion. "The Valorans spread dangerous ideas about equality and cooperation. Such concepts weaken the strong and give false hope to the weak. They were healers and teachers. They were corruptors who threatened the natural hierarchy," Chang said. "As are any species that supported them. Consider this a warning." The transmission ended. Around them, the massive council fleets began to move into defensive positions. The message was clear: leave now, or join the Valorans in death. But before they left, Dr. Cho managed to intercept one last transmission from the planet's surface. It was Elder Kasara's voice, weak and fading. "To our human friends," the recording said, "we forgave them even as we died. Do not let hatred poison your hearts, as it poisoned theirs. Remember us, not for how we ended, but for how we lived. Peace be with you across all stars." The transmission cut off. Elder Kessera was gone. They were all gone. Dr. Cho worked frantically as the Times Soul's Pride Times retreated from the system. "Captain, I'm getting detailed scans of the attack pattern," she said through tears. "They didn't target military installations because the Valorans had no military. They targeted hospitals, schools, and civilian shelters first. Why would they do that? To maximize suffering, to make sure no one survived to carry on Valoran culture or knowledge. Captain, this wasn't conquest. This was genocide." The journey back to Earth took 3 days. 3 days of silent rage and growing grief. When news of the massacre reached Earth, the entire planet mourned. Thousands of humans had studied on Valora. Many had married Valorans and started families. Some had been on the planet when the attack began. The Earth government's response was measured and diplomatic. President Kim issued a formal protest. The Earth ambassador to the Galactic Council called for an investigation that everyone knew would never happen. Trade agreements were suspended, but no military action was threatened. Min Jun found the mild response frustrating. At the memorial service for the Valorans, he stood with thousands of other humans who had lost friends. The service was beautiful, but it felt hollow. Words and flowers would not bring back the gentle people who had shown humanity such kindness. 2 days after the memorial, Min Jun received new orders. He was to report to coordinates in the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune. The location was marked as Refuge Station on his navigation system, but no such facility appeared in any official records. "Sir, are you sure these coordinates are correct?" Jinsu asked as they approached the designated position. "According to the orders, yes," Min Jun replied. "But I don't see anything here." Then space rippled, and an enormous structure appeared in front of them. It had been hidden by some kind of advanced stealth technology. The station was built inside a massive asteroid, hollowed out and filled with docking bays, construction facilities, and what looked like warships. "Captain Park, welcome to Refuge Station," came a voice over the communications system. "This is Admiral Jae-hyun Kim. Please dock in Bay 7. We have much to discuss." As the Times Soul's Pride Times entered the hidden base, Min Jun saw something that made his heart pound. The docking bays were filled with military vessels unlike anything he had ever seen. These were not exploration ships or diplomatic vessels. These were weapons of war, and they were beautiful and terrible to behold. Admiral Kim met them at the airlock. He was a stern man, with gray hair and eyes that held secrets. Captain Park, what you see here must never be spoken of outside this station, the Admiral said. You're about to learn that Earth's diplomatic response to the Valoran massacre was just for show. Our real response is only beginning. Minjun looked around at the massive hidden fleet. How long has this been here? 50 years, Captain. Ever since we joined the galactic community, we've been preparing for the day when the Council's true nature would be revealed. That day has come. The Admiral led them deeper into the station. Through viewports, Minjun could see hundreds of ships being prepared for launch. The Valorans were our friends, Admiral Kim said. They showed us kindness when no one else would. They died because they dared to treat humans as equals. That is a debt we intend to collect. Admiral Jae-hyun Kim led Captain Minjun Park through corridors that seemed to stretch forever inside the hidden asteroid base. The walls were lined with advanced displays showing ship construction schedules, weapons testing data, and tactical information about every major species in the galaxy. How is this possible? Minjun asked as they walked. The resources alone must be enormous. 50 years of careful planning, Admiral Kim replied. While Earth's public face focused on diplomacy and trade, we never forgot the lessons of human history. Peace is wonderful, but it only works when everyone agrees to be peaceful. They entered a massive observation deck that looked out over the main construction bay. Minjun stopped breathing. Below them stretched the largest warship he had ever seen. The vessel was nearly 2 kilometers long, covered in armor that seemed to absorb light, and bristling with weapon systems that made no sense to his eyes. Meet the Times Incheon's Fury Asterisk, Admiral Kim said with pride. Our newest dreadnought. She's the flagship of humanity's real fleet. How many ships do we have here? Minjun asked. This base alone houses over 300 vessels. We have 12 other facilities like this, scattered throughout the solar system. The total fleet numbers in the thousands. Minjun felt dizzy. But the Council thinks we have maybe 50 ships total. The Council thinks many things that are not true, Admiral Kim said. They see us as primitive because we're young. They judge us by their own standards, where age equals wisdom and tradition equals strength. They don't understand human innovation. Dr. Sung-mi Cho had been quiet during the tour, but now she spoke up. Admiral, the technology I'm seeing here is beyond anything in the galactic databases. How did we develop this? Admiral Kim smiled for the first time. Dr. Cho, you're about to meet some people who can answer that question better than I can. Follow me. They took a transport tube deeper into the station and arrived at a research complex that buzzed with activity. Scientists and engineers from Earth worked alongside others that Minjun did not recognize at first. Then he realized what he was seeing. Are those Valorans? He whispered. Some of the brightest minds from Valora have been working with us for decades, Admiral Kim confirmed. Not all Valorans lived on their homeworld. When the massacre happened, we had over 2,000 Valoran scientists, doctors, and engineers already here in our hidden facilities. Elder Hessen, a Valoran with darker silver skin than Kessera had possessed, approached them. His 4 arms gestured in the traditional Valoran greeting of peace. Captain Park, I knew your friend Elder Kessera well, Hessen said. She spoke of you often. She believed that humans would be the ones to bring justice to our people someday. I'm sorry for your loss, Elder, Minjun said. All of humanity mourns with you. And now all of humanity will help us answer for what was done, Hessen replied. Come, let me show you what we have built together. The research complex was filled with wonders. Dr. So-young Jang, Earth's lead weapons designer, showed them the quantum torpedo systems that could phase through any known shield technology before exploding with devastating effect. The Council species designed their shields to stop energy and matter, Dr. Jang explained. Our torpedoes exist in quantum superposition until the moment of impact. They're neither energy nor matter until they choose to be. Engineer Tae-min-oh demonstrated the adaptive armor systems that covered their warships. The metal seemed to flow like liquid, changing its structure as different weapons fired at it. Each time a weapon hits our armor, the material learns from the attack. Engineer O said, by the third hit from the same weapon type, the armor becomes nearly immune to that form of damage. But the most impressive technology was the psionic warfare systems developed by combining human brain research with Valoran mental techniques. The Council species believe that only they possess mental powers. Elder Hessen explained. They are wrong. Humans have always had the potential. But you needed teachers to unlock it. We have been those teachers. Commander He Jin-yu, head of the Psionic Warfare Division, demonstrated by making a training drone dance in the air with her mind alone. Every human has some level of psionic ability, Commander Yu said. We've been training our best pilots and tacticians for years. When we face Council ships in battle, we'll be fighting with advantages they don't even know exist. Admiral Kim led them to a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Council strongholds, while blue dots showed human assets. We've been watching and learning for 50 years, the Admiral said. Every Council war, every tactical doctrine, every ship design. We've studied it all. They see us as children, so they don't bother to hide their methods from us. Dr. Cho studied the display with growing amazement. Admiral, this intelligence network is incredible. How did you gather all this information? Trade missions, diplomatic visits, cultural exchanges. Admiral Kim replied. Every human who left Earth was also a potential intelligence asset. The Council welcomed our merchants and scholars because they thought we were harmless. They never realized we were also mapping their military capabilities. Lieutenant Jin-Soo Lee had been quiet for most of the tour, but now he asked the question that Min-jun was also thinking. Sir, if we've had this capability for so long, why didn't we prevent the massacre of Valoran? The Admiral's expression grew sad. Because we couldn't save them without revealing ourselves, Lieutenant. If we had acted, the Council would have united against us completely. Earth itself would have been destroyed. The Valorans knew this. They chose to sacrifice themselves so that humanity could survive, to fight another day. Elder Hessen nodded. My people understood that sometimes the greatest courage is in patience. We waited. And we prepared. And we made ourselves ready for the moment when justice could finally be served. Admiral Kim activated another display showing ship deployment schedules. That moment has come. In 6 hours, our first strike force will depart this station. Captain Park, you're being given command of the cruiser Times Gwangju's Justice **. Your mission is to remind the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises. Min-jun looked out at the massive fleet, preparing for war. These ships represented 50 years of human determination and Valoran wisdom working together. They were about to teach the Council that there was a difference between being young and being weak. What are our orders, Admiral? Min-jun asked. Simple, Captain, Admiral Kim replied. The Council believes in natural order and the rule of the strong. It's time to show them what real strength looks like when it's guided by justice instead of cruelty. As the Times Gwangju's Justice Times powered up its engines, Min-jun thought about Elder Kisara's last words. She had asked humans not to let hatred poison their hearts. But she had also believed that humanity would bring justice to her people. Today, both of those wishes would be honored. The hidden fleet began to move, emerging from their secret bases like ghosts becoming solid. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth had been preparing for this war longer than any of them realized. Captain Min-jun Park stood on the bridge of the Times Gwangju's Justice Times as his task force approached their first target. The hegemony mining operation at Kellen 7 was one of the largest suppliers of rare crystals used in Council weapons systems. Taking it out would slow their war machine significantly. Enemy contacts on long-range sensors, reported Lieutenant Jin-Soo Lee from his communications station. 12 hegemony patrol ships, and 4 heavy cruisers defending the mining platforms. They're running standard perimeter sweeps, added Dr. Sung-Mi Cho from the science station. No deviation from their normal patrol patterns. I don't think they know we're here. The human task force consisted of 20 ships, including Min Jun's cruiser, 6 destroyers, and 13 stealth corvettes. Against 16 enemy vessels, it should have been an even fight. But the humans were not planning to fight fairly. All ships, activate quantum stealth systems, Min Jun ordered. Begin, approach vector Alpha 7. The human ships seemed to fade from existence as their advanced stealth technology engaged. Unlike the crude cloaking devices used by some species, human stealth systems bent space-time itself around their vessels, making them completely invisible to all known detection methods. Range to target, 8 million kilometers and closing, reported Commander So-Young Jang from the weapons console. Quantum torpedoes locked and ready. Remember our mission, Min Jun announced over the fleet channel. Precision strikes only. We're here to cripple their military capability, not slaughter civilians. Any mining personnel who surrender will be treated with respect. The first hegemony ship never saw death coming. The Times Incheon's Shadow Asterisk, one of their stealth destroyers, materialized directly behind a patrol cruiser and fired a full spread of quantum torpedoes. The weapons phased through the crystalline ship's shields like they were not there, then exploded inside the hull with devastating effect. The hegemony cruiser broke apart in seconds, its crystal structure shattering like glass. "Contact! Unknown attackers!" screamed the voice of a hegemony commander over the communications channels. "Our shields had no effect. How is this possible?" More human ships dropped out of stealth around the mining operation. The hegemony defenders tried to form a defensive formation, but their movements were slow and predictable. 50 years of studying council tactics had taught the humans exactly how their enemies would respond to any given situation. Enemy formation Gamma 4 detected, Dr. Cho reported. They're moving into the crystal wall defensive pattern, just as our intelligence predicted. All ships, execute hammer strike protocol, Min Jun ordered. The human vessels moved with precision that seemed almost choreographed. While the hegemony ships tried to create their traditional defensive wall, the humans struck from above and below simultaneously. Their adaptive armor absorbed the crystal being's energy weapons while their own quantum torpedoes carved through enemy ships like knives through paper. In less than 10 minutes, the entire hegemony defense force was destroyed. Not a single human ship had taken significant damage. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the mining station," Jinsu reported. The face that appeared on screen belonged to a hegemony station commander whose crystal features were dim with fear. "Human ships, we surrender," the commander said. "Please. We are only miners. We have no weapons here. You will not be harmed," Min Jun replied. "Evacuate your personnel to the emergency shelters. We're going to destroy your mining equipment, but we won't hurt anyone who doesn't fight back." True to his word, the humans used precision strikes to destroy only the mining machinery and storage facilities. When they left, the station was crippled, but its crew was alive. The second target was a collective fuel depot in the Nexar system. The gas cloud beings had different defensive strategies than the hegemony, but the result was the same. When the collective ships tried their famous absorption tactic, surrounding the human vessels and attempting to drain their power, they found themselves facing electromagnetic pulse weapons that had been specifically designed to disrupt their gaseous forms. "Impossible," screamed the collective commander as his ship dispersed like smoke in a hurricane. "No species has weapons that can affect our molecular structure. You should have asked the Valorans about human innovation before you murdered them." Captain Yu Huajin, of the Destroyer Times, Busan's Wrath Times, replied coldly. The third strike hit a swarm breeding facility near the edge of Council space. The insectoid beings launched wave after wave of fighter craft in their typical overwhelming numbers assault. 1,000 small ships descended on the human task force, like an angry cloud of metal wasps. But the humans had prepared for this too. Their ships' point defense systems were controlled by artificial intelligence that could track and target hundreds of enemies simultaneously. The AI learned the swarm's attack patterns in real time, adapting its defensive responses with each passing second. Their fighters are following attack pattern Zulu 9, reported the AI system aboard the Times Gwangju's Justice Asterisk. Switching to counter pattern 7. Probability of successful defense, 97%. The swarm fighters found themselves flying into a wall of perfectly aimed energy beams. Their numbers meant nothing when the enemy could predict exactly where each ship would be and when. Within an hour, the breeding facility was destroyed, and its defending fleet was scattered wreckage. News of the attacks spread across the galaxy faster than the human ships could travel. The Council had suffered 3 major defeats in a single day, losing dozens of ships without destroying a single human vessel in return. Admiral Yon Seo Chang of the Hegemony contacted the human fleet directly, her crystal face twisted with rage and confusion. "This is impossible!" Chang screamed over the subspace channels. "You are a primitive species. How do you possess such technology?" Admiral Jae-hyun Kim's calm voice replied from the Times Incheon's Fury Asterisk. "You made 2 mistakes, Admiral Chang. First, you assume that age equals wisdom. You're old, but you stopped learning centuries ago. Second, you killed our friends. The natural order will not be denied," Chang shot back. "The Council has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. And in 10,000 years, you never learned the most important lesson," Admiral Kim replied. "Real strength doesn't come from oppressing the weak. It comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves." The transmissions ended, but the psychological damage was done. Across Council space, military commanders frantically reviewed their intelligence reports on human capabilities. They found almost nothing useful. For 50 years, humanity had appeared to be a minor diplomatic species with limited military potential. The reality was very different. In the secret chambers of the Council on Nexus Prime, emergency sessions began immediately. The 3 species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia suddenly faced an enemy they did not understand and could not predict. "How many ships do they really have?" demanded Chancellor Zephan of the Hegemony. "Unknown," replied the intelligence coordinator, a nervous creature that belonged to one of the minor Council species. "Our estimates ranged from 50 to 100 vessels total. After today's attacks, those numbers are clearly wrong. Find out everything," ordered Chancellor Vex of the Collective. "We need to know what we're really facing." But finding out would prove to be much harder than they thought. The humans had spent 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. Every piece of false information in Council databases had been carefully placed. Every intelligence estimate had been deliberately misleading. The Council was about to discover that they had been fighting a war they did not know existed, against an enemy who knew everything about them while they knew nothing about their foe. The galaxy was changing, and the species that had ruled through fear and oppression were about to learn what justice looked like when it came with overwhelming force behind it. The final battle would take place where it all began. Nexus Prime. The massive Council station hung in space, surrounded by the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Over 2,000 ships from the Hegemony, Collective, and Swarm had gathered to defend the seat of their power. Against them came humanity's task force of 50 vessels. Captain Min Jun Park stood on the bridge of the Times Gwangju's Justice Times as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus system. The sight of the enemy armada would have terrified any normal commander. Min Jun felt only cold determination. "Sir, enemy fleet strength is confirmed at 2,043 vessels," reported Dr. Sung Mi Cho. "They have us outnumbered 40 to 1. "Good," Min Jun replied. "That means they're confident. Confident enemies make mistakes." Admiral Jae-hyun Kim's voice came over the fleet communications channel from his flagship Times Incheon's Fury Asterisk. "All ships, remember why we're here. The Valorans died because they dared to dream of a galaxy where kindness mattered more than power. Today, we make that dream real. The Council fleet moved to intercept the humans in a massive wall formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space. It was an impressive sight, meant to overwhelm enemies with its sheer scale. Enemy fleet is moving into the Great Wall Formation, Dr. Cho reported. Standard Council doctrine for massive fleet engagements. Then they're about to learn why standard doctrine doesn't work against unconventional enemies, Minjun said. All ships, implement protocol shattered mirror. The human fleet did something that no Council tactician expected. They scattered. Instead of forming their own battle line to meet the enemy wall, the human ships spread out in all directions, using Nexus Prime's massive structure as cover and concealment. "They're running!" shouted Admiral Yun Xiao Chang over the Council communications network. "Pursue and destroy them." But the humans were not running. They were positioning themselves to use the station itself as a weapon. Engineer So Young Zhang worked frantically at her console aboard the Times Guangzhou's Justice Asterisk. "Captain, I've located the station's main power grid. If we can route energy from our ships into their system, we can create a massive electromagnetic storm." "Do it," Minjun ordered. Around the station, human ships began connecting their power systems to Nexus Prime's electrical grid through focused energy beams. The station had been designed to handle the power needs of thousands of alien visitors. But it was never meant to absorb the output of military starship reactors. The result was spectacular and terrifying. Massive lightning bolts began arcing between the station's sections as its power systems overloaded. The electromagnetic storm spread outward, interfering with the Council ships' targeting systems and disrupting their communications. In the chaos, the human ships struck with surgical precision. Commander He Jin Yu, leading the Psionic Warfare Division, reached out with her enhanced mental abilities and touched the minds of Council commanders across the fleet. She did not try to control them, but simply showed them images of the burning Valoran cities and the dying children in the hospitals they had bombed. Several Council captains broke formation as the full weight of what they had done hit them emotionally for the first time. Others became so enraged that they abandoned tactical discipline entirely. In the center of the battle, Captain Min Jun Park's Times Guangzhou's Justice Times faced off directly against Admiral Chang's flagship Times Crystal Throne Asterisk. The hegemony commander was skilled and experienced, but she was fighting by rules that no longer applied. "You cannot defeat the natural order," Chang screamed over the communications channel as her ship fired crystal-based energy weapons at the human cruiser. "Watch us," Minjun replied calmly. The Times Guangzhou's Justice Times absorbed Chang's attacks with its adaptive armor while returning fire with quantum torpedoes that phased through the hegemony ship's shields. But Minjun was not trying to destroy Chang's ship quickly. He was making a point. "You want to know about natural order?" Minjun said, as his ship danced around the larger hegemony vessel with impossible grace. "Here's what's natural. Protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Standing up for friends who would do the same for you. Choosing justice over convenience." Chang's ship was taking heavy damage, but she refused to surrender. "Humans are weak. You were meant to serve." "We were meant to grow," Minjun replied. "And we did." The battle raged for hours. But the outcome was never in doubt. Human technology, tactics, and training proved superior at every level. More importantly, they were fighting for something greater than themselves. As the Council fleet crumbled around them, something unexpected happened. Ships belonging to the lesser species that had been forced to serve the Council began switching sides. The Altarians, the vegan colonies, the Centauri Federation, SF all the species that had suffered under Council oppression, saw their chance for freedom. "Captain, we're receiving support from over 300 Allied vessels," Lieutenant Jinsu Lee reported with amazement. "They're targeting Council ships and protecting our flanks." The tide had turned completely. What began as a battle between humanity and the Council had become a galaxy-wide uprising against oppression. But the real victory came when Dr. Cho activated the station's communication systems and broadcast Elder Kisara's final message across all galactic frequencies. Beings throughout the galaxy heard the Valoran Elder's words about forgiveness and peace, and remembered what they had lost when the Council chose murder over mercy. By the time the battle ended, the Council's fleet was destroyed, and their leadership was in custody. Admiral Chang sat in the detention center aboard the Times Guangzhou's Justice Asterisk, her crystal form dim with defeat. "What happens now?" she asked Min Jun during his visit to her cell. "Now we try to build something better," he replied. "A galaxy where species are judged by their actions, not their age. Where strength is used to protect the weak instead of oppressing them. The strong will always rule," Chang said bitterly. "You're right," Min Jun agreed. "But strength isn't just about weapons and ships. Real strength is moral courage. The ability to do what's right, even when it's difficult. The Valorans had that kind of strength, and it made them stronger than your entire empire." 3 months later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on Nexus Prime for the first meeting of the new Galactic Assembly. Every species had an equal vote, regardless of their military power or technological advancement. Admiral Kim stood at the podium where Chancellor Zephon had once issued orders to genocide. Behind him hung a banner showing the silver tree symbol of Valora, adopted as the emblem of the new government. "We gather here in memory of those who died for the crime of kindness," Admiral Kim said. "The Valorans taught us that the measure of a civilization is not how it treats the strong, but how it protects the weak. That lesson will guide us as we build a better future." Captain Minjun Park stood in the memorial garden that had been planted where the Council's throne room once stood. Each tree represented a different species that had suffered under the old regime. At the center grew a silver tree cutting that had been saved from Valora before the massacre. Lieutenant Jinsu Lee joined him in the garden. "Sir, do you think we've really changed anything? There will always be those who try to rule through fear." Min Jun touched the bark of the silver tree and felt hope growing in his heart. "Yes, there will. But now they know that someone will stand against them. The galaxy has learned that humanity keeps its promises to friends and settles its debts with enemies." Above them, ships from 100 worlds moved peacefully through space around Nexus Prime. The station that had once been a symbol of oppression was now a beacon of hope. The age of the Council was over. The age of justice had begun. And in the silver tree's branches, if you listened carefully, you could almost hear Elder Kisara's voice, whispering words of peace to all who would listen.